Hey everybody, what's going on? It's SyraCuseeee here from WiseTake, and I am bringing you guys something new I plan on doing a ton in the future, and that is bringing you guys some videos. Some of them are going to be for beginners, some are going to be for intermediate, and I also have some videos planned for the experienced players for not only football but other sports as well. But I wanted to do this one first. It's how to build an NFL cash game lineup with NFL starting up this week. I am pumped. I'm sure you guys are pumped. So I just want to go through my process in building an NFL cash game lineup. My process is obviously probably different from everybody else's. It's what I do. It works for me. So I just wanted to share with you guys, some of you new guys. I'm sure some of the experienced players probably already have their own way that they build, but this is how I do it. So without further ado, I take all these things into consideration on all the positions when I build a lineup. So it's pretty, I'm not going to post it for every single position, but this is general for all the positions that I'm going to be listing. Things that I look for. High floors. High floors they're pretty much like guaranteed points. It's like the worst possible game that player can have. You want guys to have high floors, that way, if they have a bad game, you already know what to expect. Like if Aaron Rodgers, his worst game's a 10, his floor is going to be a 10. You want guys with high floors. You don't want a guy that gets a 2 and then a 17, a 3, and a 15. Like, you want a high floor, which means they're probably, consistent. That's what you want in cash games, consistency. I look for players with high Vegas implied totals. Usually that means there's going to be a lot of scoring. You lose a lot of points, and a lot of points mean, you're going to the bank at the end of the day. I'm looking at players going up against teams with a bad DVP. It pretty much means, say the Steelers are playing opening day against the Browns, and the Browns have a terrible passing defense, or terrible defense in general. I'm obviously going to want to have Steelers against them, and vice versa. Like the Patriots this week are going up against a tough Chiefs team, and then you got somebody like the Steelers going up against the Browns. You're obviously going to want those Steelers a lot more in cash games because they're going up against a crappier team. They have more. There's more value there, and not any specific position, but in general, in my entire lineup, I try to find 1 or 2 guys that have great value or points per dollar. A lot of times you have injuries, and you find, coming around Thursday that a second or third string is going to get the start, and they haven't adjusted his pricing because the pricing's already out. You're going to get him dirt cheap, and it doesn't matter how many people own him. You're going to want him in that lineup. If he can get you, the 2.5, 3, 4x, it doesn't matter how much they're owned. You're going to want to have them in your lineup. Picking a quarterback. I would say picking a quarterback, I've seen a few different strategies people use. Some people like to pay up. Some people like to pay down. I'm not set in my ways. I play it week by week. And if I think there's a good time to pay up for a quarterback, I'll pay up. And if I think there's a time to pay down, I pay down. So, you got to see what's going on for that week. If there's not many good quarterbacks and there's a stud that's going to get you what you need, you take him. If there's a bunch of value guys that have a lot of upside, then I'll pay down. So that's how I pick my quarterback. The things that I'm looking at are quarterbacks with a lot of snaps, passing attempts, more chances equal more points. If teams are passing 40 times compared to a team that's passing 12 and 13 times, I obviously want the quarterback that's passing more. More opportunity, more points. Pretty simple. High completion percentage, efficiency is huge. I feel like a lot of people really don't consider that. Like, even if my quarterback is getting 12 to 15 passes, if he's completing like 80% of them, like compared to a guy that's throwing the ball maybe like 40 times and he's around 30, 40%, so I want all these things that I'm listing, I want them all within one quarterback if I can possibly get it. It's probably not going to happen, but if I can get most of these things that I'm listing into one quarterback, that's the guy I'm looking for. So I look at high completion percentage. A lot of people, I feel like, don't really look at that. It's not like a key stat. For me, it works. That's what I want to tell you guys. Running quarterbacks are an added bonus. Obviously, if you get a quarterback that's down on the 10-yard line and his wide receivers are covered and he can run it in, that's a bonus. He gets a rushing touchdown instead of a passing touchdown. Rushing touchdowns I think are a lot more points on both sides. So, that's pretty important when you think of a guy like maybe trying to think of a non-running quarterback that like Brady runs a few times, but like you have a chance between Jameson Winston and Brady and everything's even, I'm taking Winston because the guy can run, as opposed to Brady that doesn't run. And usually Winston's probably going to be cheaper. So running quarterbacks are an added bonus to me. Game flow. If a team is projected to win by a lot of points, you can expect them to run the ball later on in the game. So I know you can't predict blowouts, but that's something you just need to consider. It's a factor. It's not something that oh my God, the game's a blowout, I'm not taking that quarterback. That's not the case. It's just something, if you have two quarterbacks that you really, you've done all your research and you just set on one or two quarterbacks and you can't decide which one to pick. If one has a potential chance for a blowout, I'm probably going to go with the other guy. Like, I want high scores and close spreads because that usually means it's going to be a shootout. There's going to be a lot of scoring. They're not going to bring in the backup. They're not going to be running the ball in the third quarter. So that's just, a factor to consider. Like I said, I'm not set in stone. If it's a blowout, I'm just not thinking about that guy. It's just something you need to consider when you're trying to pick your quarterback. Quarterbacks with great home and away splits. It's a thing. Like you look at Roethlisberger, last year he was terrible on the road. He was great at home. So, I mean, it's something you need to consider when you're picking a quarterback. Make sure you look at the road splits. Make sure they're not drastic. If they are, it's something you need to consider as a factor when drafting a quarterback. All right, when I pick a running back, the key things that I look at are rushing attempts per game. Similar to the quarterbacks that pass a lot, you want a guy that's getting the ball. Like, why do I want a guy that's getting maybe like 10 carries as opposed to a guy that can get like 20, 25? Like, you want the opportunity. You don't want to be splitting the handoffs. There's a lot of teams that run, dual threat running backs. They'll have one guy, and they pretty much split the carries. I'd rather have a guy that's in there the whole game. That's just, you get. Would you rather have 25 lottery tickets or 10 lottery tickets? It's pretty simple. You want more chances. So I look at rushing attempts per game, and opportunity equals points. Running backs that can catch are a huge bonus, similar to quarterbacks that can run. Running backs that can catch are a huge bonus. You get a point for every catch. That's huge. So if you get a guy like Danny Woodhead and all those guys that catch out of the backfield, that's definitely a plus. Like, if you have two running backs similar and you can't decide on which one, if one catches the ball out of the backfield a lot more than the other one, there you go. It's a lock for me. Look for running backs on teams that love to run the ball. Prime example, Kansas City. Andy Reid loves to run the ball. They're a running offense. Who's ever the running back in Kansas City, I usually love because that's their game plan. They like to run. So you got to know teams' game plans. Going into the week. Usually the teams do the same thing. You get your passing teams, you get your running teams. But I love running backs on teams that like to run the ball. So if you have, how teams scheme, that's something you want to consider. You want those running backs. Game flow, like we were talking earlier about the blowouts, same thing with a running back. It actually will help the running back if there's a blowout and, he's going to get the ball later on in the game if they got the huge lead, So it's game flow is just huge on all aspects. Like, if you can have an idea how the game's going to play out, you can kind of, have a good educated guess on how that, how it's going to affect the quarterback, running back, wide receivers. TDs are everything. You need those TDs. Like, if a guy gets, they get down on the goal line and they take your running back out and he doesn't get, like last year, LeGarrette Blount. Like, every time they got down on the goal line, he got the ball. So that hurt their other running backs. And, there were times that, I would roster Blount only because I knew once they get down the goal line, he was getting the ball. So even if he got 5-6 carries, he was going to get those touchdowns. So TDs are everything. They're very, very important when you're drafting a running back. Picking a wide receiver and tight end, targets. There's plenty of places out there where you can, view targets, see who's getting all the action, There's usually, every quarterback has a wide receiver they like to throw to. We want receptions because you have more opportunities. Similar to what we talked about with the quarterbacks, similar to what we talked about with the running backs. You want those targets. Look at the wide receivers and tight ends on teams that love to pass the ball. Similar to what we were talking about earlier, the schemes of an offense. If you go teams that like to pass the ball, I'm trying to think like Green Bay, You know, those type of wide receivers and tight ends you obviously want, because you know Aaron Rodgers is going to throw like 50-something times. So, you know, you get guys on that team like the fourth and fifth string wide receiver on Green Bay will probably get action, as opposed to teams, you know, other teams that like Kansas City. You know, they probably only go 3 deep with wide receivers. You know, the other guys probably will get maybe an attempt here and there. So if you, like I said, you got to plan on how teams are going to scheme. You got to know, do your research. Percentage of receptions to targets. I want players that are going to maximize on the targets. If a guy's getting the ball thrown to him 10 times and he's only completing 40% of them, you know, as opposed to a guy that's getting the ball maybe 8 times and he's catching every single one of them, that's something important. You know, I feel like that's another thing people don't look at is, even though they're getting the targets, are they making the catches, or are they getting the receptions? You know, because that's huge to me. Like, you got to maximize on your opportunities. Game flow, we already talked about that. We want high paced, close, high scoring, close Vegas spreads. You know, you want the shootout. You know, you you just want to go back and forth. You want to see that point total just racking up, like, you know. So you want to look for high totals that have a close spread. Similar to running backs, TDs are everything. I didn't write anything up on the kickers. I feel like I don't play a lot of FanDuel. You know, I think the kicker's just like a total punt for me. It's almost like catcher in baseball. Like, if there's not a solid catcher, you just look for somebody cheap in a good spot. So it's something, you know, you can get value there. So I pay down for kicker. Find somebody who's going to get some sort of opportunities. And as far as defense is the last thing I pick on cash games. I look at what I got left, and I look at the best available option, and I go from there. So that's pretty much how I build my NFL cash game lineup. Hope you guys like this video. If you could guys do me a favor, hit that like button. Pretty much, I love that. Post in the comments what you guys think. Hit me up on Twitter. You know, let me know what things you guys want to see for videos. And make sure you check out our NFL package. It's pretty sweet. Prices, you can't beat the price that you're going to be getting for this, especially with the amount of content we're putting out. So I hope you guys like this. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. All right, peace.